The president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, is strongly and assertively accusing the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo of supporting the group of rebels who want to overthrow his government in Rwanda, saying the Democratic Republic of Congo president is hiding under fighting M23, yet his mission is to put down the government of Rwanda under Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame is bringing out the evidence, what he calls evidence, that pins Congo's president, Tshisekedi, of supporting, financing, arming a group of rebels in Congo that is fighting to overthrow his government. All this is after the crisis in Congo, Goma takeover by the M23, and Kagame says he is not the one supporting M23. M23 are Congolese who are fighting for their rights. But the president of Congo, Tshisekedi, is pinning Kagame of supporting M23. And now Kagame is pinning Tshisekedi, Tshisekedi of supporting the group of rebels who want to overthrow Kagame's government. Then who is supporting who? Who is fighting who? Who wants to overthrow who? We need to know. Let's go in Kagame.
From the president of the DRC, particularly during his campaign, where he even indicated that he's willing to fight Rwanda. You are being accused of supporting the M23 rebels. Mm-hmm. And this has led to people saying this is causing instability in another country. What is your reaction to the critics who are saying you are behind M23 rebels?
Yeah, I can also contextualize that for you and tell you what the problem is. Well, in fact, the president of DRC did not just say he's willing to fight Rwanda. No, he actually said he's going to fight Rwanda, and his aim is even to bring regime change. And by the way, started inviting these critics we talked about earlier, whichever way. Even they went to Kinshasa, they have met, the whole thing was for him, he's trying to organize them, fund them, and support them to remove the government of Rwanda. That's one. So it is, and it is him, sir, he himself is out in the open saying it, even on camera. It's not a rumor, it's not anything. He has said it repeatedly and to everybody, for everybody to hear. Well, you don't want to dismiss anything, but on one hand, we want to not take it seriously. He must be having issues that make him do or say that. But that's not a compliment. There are serious issues, maybe. But on the other hand, we don't want to take anything. Maybe he actually, and especially when we started seeing that he was organizing people and bringing them to Kinshasa, and that he has armed the FDLR. You know the FDLR? These are.
I know the FDLR.
Yes, he has armed them, given them everything they wanted. So he's using them to fight his wars against M23, against any other person he wishes to fight. So we have had that serious problem of FDLR living in the DRC even before he became president. That's a different issue, but when he became the president, now he has openly and officially been associated with them and supporting them, and the aim is to cause problems here in Rwanda and along the lines FDLR is. And in fact, the fact that he embraces FDLR shows something else. And that is, and then alongside that, he has mobilized some countries, especially, I will not hesitate to mention. For example, if you see Burundi, the way it is involved in the DRC and in the fight alongside the forces of Congo against M23, it has this connotation of the history of genocide and the politics along ethnic lines and discrimination and even persecution and so on and so forth. So that's when we started seeing it as being very serious in as far as we are concerned. But also, if you look at the story of M23, before I answer the accusation that we support M23, people need to understand who the M23 are. It's not me to define them or talk about who they are. Let even independent people try and do that, and some of them have done it, as I have seen. M23, by the way, including that I asked President Tshisekedi face to face whether he recognizes M23 as Congolese, or these are people who came from somewhere else, including Rwanda, and just found themselves illegally in Congo. His answer to me, and in the presence of other leaders, was that he recognizes these as Congolese. I'm just repeating it for record. He himself says these are Congolese. I said, fine. It was important for him to clarify that. Then, so if he says that these are Congolese himself, why can't he resolve the problems of his people, of his country, and when he's a leader? It doesn't matter how he becomes a leader, whether the first or the second. That's not my business to judge. I'm not going into that. But there are questions that maybe the world can also pay attention to. So if I had problems here with my people, a section of people, whichever demands they are making, why wouldn't I not find a way of resolving that? We started by talking about it, whether genocide could have been prevented, whether there was a way. So why wouldn't Tshisekedi find it in himself? Even after accidentally becoming the leader of his country and later on forcing himself to be there, why can't he find it in himself to address the problems of his people? The M23 we are talking about is not just 1,000, 2,000 or 3,000 or whatever number with the arms fighting. We have 100,000 people here who are in their category and their family members and so on, who have been uprooted from Eastern Congo and are staying here in Rwanda in the camp refugee camps for the last 23 years.
This is where leadership comes from.
Yes.
Can't the two leaders, the president of Rwanda and the president of the DRC, find a permanent solution so that these two nations can live side by side, and
Yes, we can.
you can push for the development of this beautiful region?
That is a very, it's a simple logic. What you're saying is a simple logic. Until you start asking yourself that question. Now, so for the case of Rwanda, for example, what would anyone ask me to do for that problem to be addressed?
Are you willing to engage in talks?
We've been doing that. In fact, when I asked him this question, we were already in Nairobi, we were in Kenya, having this discussion with the leaders. So we've been going back and forth. Recently, I was in Angola, in Rwanda.
Yes.
Over the same thing. Because there are processes in Nairobi, there is a process in Luanda. I've been to these places like, I don't know, a dozen times over the same issue. But if you have, like you asked me, can we sit? Yes, we can sit and talk about what. But if you have also either you have listened to me or you have listened to President Tshisekedi. But if you find somebody who admitted in the meeting that yes, these are Congolese, how then, at the end of the day, also start saying, I will not talk to these people, I will not do this, I will not do that. I mean, what? And for me, I'm even using things that are said in the open by the person himself. I'm not creating any story for him. Or, according to him, he thinks M23 is not a problem, that it is Rwanda. And then we ask, okay, tell me, how is the problem, does the problem become Rwanda? And if so, what are you asking Rwanda to do? Instead, Rwanda actually has a lot to ask. We're asking you, first of all, why do we have these 100,000 people here as refugees? Second, why are you having the M23, but the M23 didn't come the other day. I think the war started the fighting started in 2022. But that's not the first time. This problem was there 2012. If you remember, the problem of M23 was born around 2012 because of the same history. This persecution, this. And we even went into facts of history. We said, how did these people who are attributed to being Rwandans come to be in Congo? Is it Rwanda that took them there? These areas of Eastern Congo, Masisi, around Rutshuru, wherever, they have been, these people, they have their ancestral homes there. These are people, they were not, if you were to blame anybody, maybe you would blame colonialists. They're the ones more responsible for that. During those years, we were ourselves becoming refugees. Some of those things were already established, and they only turned into problems much later. So Rwanda is just being talked about for the sake of, again, hiding behind this. If you have a leader of a country who refuses to address his own problems and blames people of other countries for being responsible for those problems, then you know the leader has issues to deal with about himself. So I want to repeat it. M23 was not created by Rwanda. It's a bigger issue for Congo than for Rwanda. They are associated with 100,000, by then there are more than that in Uganda. In the neighboring Uganda, there are more people there as refugees from Congo. So if you have a leader in Congo who doesn't want to address his problems but thinks other people should come to resolve his problems, and that's why, by the way, he creates M23, he has problems, then he goes around the countries asking them to come, and he keeps saying he's not going to talk to M23, he's going to fight M23, and then he goes to countries to ask them to come and do the fighting for him. I mean, it's ridiculous. You know, in Nairobi, that's why East Africa decided they should help DRC, and we all agreed that that should happen, to support DRC, to bring peace and so on and so forth. But to bring peace in DRC was not to fight, and except those, I will come to explain that, there are those who should be fought. But instead they are not the ones being fought. The ones being fought are the ones actually who have a problem that needs to be addressed. So the East African community sent a force, and the force was to stand in between the fighting forces so that a political process resolves the problem. But over time, the president of Congo decided, since this force is not here to fight M23, for me, that is the way I see it, then I want them out. When he was chasing them, he was already in SADC, asking SADC to come and replace the East African forces. And SADC came. So this problem, even now that it has not been answered, between East African forces and SADC forces, who was supposed to do what? Or why couldn't they even talk to each other to understand so that they help this country? But the way it happened was as if the East African forces should not be there. They are not doing what Tshisekedi wants. Therefore, SADC should move in and actually do what Tshisekedi wants. But now, between these two positions, what is the meaning? Or what is going to be the solution? How is peace going to come about when even these regions don't seem to
work together
or speak the same language? How? And I'm really asking this question again. Why couldn't there have been minimum, even a conversation to understand each other, so that if one was making a mistake, maybe they could correct it, if the other, but they complement each other. This is, if people wanted peace, this is what should have happened. So maybe people don't want peace. And then finally on this, and this is unlike some of the countries we know. What is happening in Congo, in Eastern Congo? Let me summarize it. I mentioned to you FDLR that has been armed, that fights alongside and sometimes integrated
government forces
in the DRC. That is one. Two, and by the way, before I leave that, the forces of DRC, the FDLR, are being used by government to persecute a section of the population in Eastern Congo. That's why you have these refugees I was talking about. That's why you have M23, which started Even that 2012, that's how it started. So it was never addressed for it to come back 10 years after. Now, does any of these forces, whether East African or from SADC, want to be on the side of the country, DRC, that kills its own people, that persecutes its own people? Does it want to be on the side of a country that has reorganized FDLR and so on, that was responsible for the genocide here in Rwanda? I don't think any of these countries in SADC should be finding any reason or have even any excuse to find themselves on that side. It just doesn't make sense. It's unlike South Africa, it's unlike Malawi, it's unlike Tanzania. Well, I'm sure about South Africa and Tanzania. The others I don't know, I'm not sure. But it's unlike them. And that's why the East African community, when it sent forces there, they went there saying theirs is not to go and take sides and fight this and that, but they will fight for peace. Meaning, in the imposition of the ceasefire, which they had succeeded in doing for some time, if any one of these groups fighting violated that, and for them they don't want peace, they want to continue fighting, that is the one they would take on. I thought that was an honorable position. But somehow Tshisekedi one day woke up and said, no, I don't want East African forces here. I have SADC to come and do. Now, in the recent cases, we had people, I don't know how SADC would love to be associated with that you are bombarding places indiscriminately, and some of the times ordinary people are being killed just because you are there to do the fighting for somebody in DRC who has refused to work for his own people and bring peace. I don't know how they are going to live with that, honestly.
The president of the Democratic Republic of Congo over doing whatever he feels want to do to overthrow his government. And that's why Paul Kagame is so hungry of what is taking place in Congo, and about with the president Tshisekedi over trying to overthrow the government, which he says is legally in power. So why do you fight? Why do you support rebels who want to overthrow the duly elected government? And now the question again comes, why Paul Kagame is fighting, want to overthrow the government which is duly elected in power by the people? Then who is fighting who? Who is funding who? Now everybody is funding him. Another one? Is it true that Paul Kagame is funding M23? UN report came out pinning Paul Kagame on the funding of 2023. There is no any UN report that is pinning the Democratic Republic Congo's president over funding rebels that are fighting to take over Paul Kagame. Then what's the logic behind here? Why all this is taking place? When will Africa settle, sit down, and stop fighting itself? Why are we buying guns, buying bombs just to fight ourselves? When will this end? Africa, when will we stop fighting our fellow Africans? When will we stop fighting ourselves just because of money, because of power, because of greed, because of riches? No, this is not worth our life. Let's not kill our people just because of money, power, greediness. It's not worth it. Let's get back, sit down on the ground board and plan for our Africa. Africa would have been the superpower in the world, would have been the richest continent. But because Africans will fight ourselves, we don't like our neighbors, we don't love our neighbors, we don't want to see who is developing. The Western world better develop, and Africa is not developing just because we don't want to see our fellow Africans develop. Then who will come out to help Africa? Africans must stand up, must get up to fight, to put this on an end, to grow, to develop their continent themselves, because these leaders have disappointed us.